All right, welcome to day 2 of the Blaze Virtual Summit. My name is Shannon, and I will get to my introduction in a bit. But before I dive in, let's just take care of a couple of things. See, I started my career off as a teacher. So while I'm here to inspire you and potentially give you a little nudge in the ass, I also am always teaching. So what that means is go ahead and grab your notebook, grab a pen, because I'm going to be dropping some nuggets and sharing some free resources with you that you definitely want to take advantage of. Also, let's not make this a drive-by relationship. So go ahead and follow me on IG. You can see my handle. I am Shannen CS, and that's Shannen with an EN. Follow me on IG, and also throughout our conversation now, let's actually make it a conversation. Join in on the chat because I will be live chatting. So if you like something, if you have an aha, even if you disagree, go ahead and post it in. Let's keep the conversation going. Because we really need to start talking about this weak ass advice that we have been following. See, as Black women, we've been given a lot, and we've also chosen to follow some weak ass advice. And this weak ass advice, it's going to cost you. It costs you your energy, your confidence, your joy, and heck, it even costs you your money too, if we're really keeping it real. But the biggest factor that this weak ass advice has, the biggest cost, is you. It costs your light, your authenticity, your joy, your it factor. So let me explain. Many of us here likely started out or might even still have some sort of full-time or part-time position. You might even be running your own company, be your own boss, and yet you're still following this weak ass advice. And this advice has come from well-meaning coworkers, board members, maybe even family members and friends, and even from your own inner dialogue. It says, yeah, I see you grinding. I see you working hard. You're qualified, but you could still be better. You have some weaknesses, some imperfections that need improvement. Focus on improving those weaknesses. Did you just catch that? Focus on improving your weaknesses. That right there, that is some weak ass advice. And so, sis, I'm here to let you know that working on your weaknesses, focusing on your weaknesses is no longer your burden. It is time to focus on your strengths. And I'm not talking about the strong Black woman type of strength. We let that burden go a long time ago. What I am here to tell you is to focus on you, on your shine, your it factor, on your strengths. So let me go ahead and actually introduce myself. My name is Shannen Coleman Siciliano. I know that that's a mouthful, so you can just remember my name is Shannen, and it's Shannen with an E-N. I live in Greater Chicago with my husband and my daughters. I'm originally from Southern California, I know, now living in Chicago. But because Southern California is in my blood, you can find me near large bodies of water, oftentimes in the sun. I know, not in Chicago during the winter time, but that's what it is. But you can find me in the sun, near water, and also on the dance floor, because if there's music, I am going to be dancing. I am the founder, CEO, and CHO, not the chief ho, but the chief hype officer of Begin Within. I hype up leaders of color, particularly Black women, to thrive in leadership and in life. I'm what you would call your not so typical executive coach. My career arc goes from classroom teacher to nonprofit management, community organizer and coalition builder, an executive director of a statewide campaign for education funding, and a consultant. In the course of my career, I've advocated for and won over $5 billion in education funding for state and local jurisdictions, primarily focused on urban education, because I believe that we need to support our kids. I've been featured in Black Enterprise on local and national newspapers, NPR, ABC Morning News, and I recently won the Peter Jennings Award for Civic Leadership. I am grateful for all of my experiences and achievements, and I am not disregarding any of those. I'm very proud of them. But I know that those came at a price. You see, I allowed the feedback of others to guide me, and also I allowed this weak-ass advice to become my own self-talk. They began to determine who I was, what I stood for, and I just kept following more and more weak-ass advice. But I felt justified in doing so because my work was in the spirit of community. See, I was continuously looking for gaps and holes and weaknesses within and doing everything that I could to fix them and fill them and level up. But the ultimate cost of doing that was that I ended up losing myself. So even with all of the success that was surrounding me, I felt lost. And I felt lost because, again, I had lost myself. So let me take you back to October 2014. See, up until that point, life had been a whirlwind. I was jumping from one action to another, and I had just come off of co-leading an exhilarating but exhausting multi-year campaign for $1 billion in school construction for Baltimore City schools. These schools hadn't been touched since the 1950s. Schools with broilers that didn't work, but yeah, they were full of passionate teachers and students who deserved way better. And along the way of that campaign, and even in other work that I was doing, I was told things like, you're too soft in meetings. You need to show up tougher, harder, put these politicians in their place, be angry. But y'all, I'm not an angry person. That doesn't come naturally. In fact, a strength of mine is relationship building. And that's what I was trying to do. But I was told that my way didn't fit the mold, the male mold, typically the white male mold. But I shifted and I tried to tweak myself. And then I jumped into motherhood for the first time. I really tried to soak in motherhood. And let's be real. Soaking in motherhood for someone like me, or maybe you and some of these overachievers out there, I know I'm not alone, right? But soaking in motherhood actually meant trying to enjoy all of the small moments while also thinking about, what am I not doing wrong? What can I do to level up? How can I do more? And this is all while barely sleeping, barely eating, hardly even showering. And so you start to see the parallels, right? What was happening in my professional world, I allowed to happen in my personal world. And then it also became the inner dialogue that I was having. I kept following weak-ass advice. And now you layer on these parenting books who are telling me yet another area of weakness and another area of growth that I could have. And I just felt altogether that I wasn't adding up and I had lost my shine. And if you know, motherhood, especially for new mothers, can be a slap in the face of all the ways that you are inadequate and all the ways that you can focus on your weaknesses. So at this point, I had burdened myself with so much focus on lack, on my weaknesses, that I lost who I really was. So back to October 2014, I put my toddler to bed and I walked downstairs through a dark house. Now, it was dark and eerily silent because my husband was also on the road traveling. And I walked into our den, our dimly lit den. I sat in the corner of our couch and I was numb. Really, I was actually depressed, but didn't know it at the time. So what's the thing that you do when you're feeling completely numb? Well, I mind-numbingly reach for my phone to mind-numbingly scroll Facebook. So the only thing that is lighting up my face is the blue tinged light from the screen that was shining on my face. And I just scrolled. I scrolled, hit a like, scrolled some more, maybe rolled my eyes once or twice. You know how we do. Then I kept scrolling. And all of a sudden, my thumb stopped. My girlfriend had put a post that read, if you want to find balance in ambition and acceptance, if you seek authenticity and joy, please sign up for this mastermind program. wait a second. Ambition, acceptance, authenticity, and joy. These were all things that I had lost at this point, especially my joy. I had lost my it factor. I had lost my shine and what made me me. And so those words on the screen, on the Facebook post, gave me the jolt that I needed to stop my thumb. And thank goodness I had enough sense to apply to this mastermind. And the reason why is because joining that mastermind planted the seed in me to become a coach, because I realized that coaching is a way to help others completely transform their lives and step back into their power. And so I entered coaching with you, with us, Black women in mind. See, we don't need to lose ourselves in the work. We don't need to lose ourselves in life. And we definitely don't need to keep following the weak-ass advice of society or of well-meaning friends, colleagues, and family members who are focused on our deficits. And so I want to ensure that other Black women, that other leaders of color don't find themselves balled up on the corner of the couch feeling lost, because it's costing us. It's costing our health, our confidence, our joy, our money, and ourselves. As Black women, we can be bombarded with a whole bunch of weak-ass advice that makes us feel like we are not good enough. Like we need to constantly focus on areas of growth. See, here are some situations that I've seen play out with my clients when they choose to focus on weak-ass advice and focus on their deficits and begin to dim their light. One was afraid to ask for a raise because she didn't feel quite ready. She believed that she needed to work on things and fix them just a little bit more. But in reality, sis was overqualified for the position that she had and was worthy and deserving of a long overdue raise. Another was always prepping for presentations in front of VPs at her company, but she would feel defeated before even stepping into the room. It's like sis had lost before even starting, right? Because she was focused on what could go wrong, on what she still needed to improve. Another had a notebook full of unique, brilliant business ideas, but she kept enrolling in courses that would help her improve in areas that she's not quite good at yet. Well, sis is actually scared, but she's also lost her focus on her zone of genius, on her strengths, and on her brilliant ideas that are sitting in her notebook. Another had built a consulting practice, like already had her consulting practice on and going. But yet, the weak-ass advice that she received from her previous job was still filling her mind, was still consuming her energy. And so she doubted herself, and she considered going back to another 9-to-5 job, even though she really did not want to. You see, sis allowed the weak-ass advice from a previous job to live rent-free in her head and impact her confidence and her ability to run her own business. But let's not just talk about the anecdotes here. Let's actually look at the research, because the research shows it too, of why you should not be focusing on your weaknesses. Here's what happens when you actually focus on your weaknesses. One, you're exhausted, right? It's exhausting to continuously focus on things that you aren't quite good at yet. It also brings and adds more stress into your life. You feel inadequate, you have a lack of confidence, you're less fulfilled, and it is actually a waste of time. Like literally focusing on your weaknesses is a waste of time, because your weaknesses will never, ever become as strong as your strongest strength. And so let's let it go. Release those burdens. And the actual definition of a weakness is anything that gets in the way of your success. So if a weakness is anything that gets in the way of your success, why would we put our focus there? It makes no sense. I'm done talking about weaknesses, because focusing on your weaknesses is some weak-ass advice. And go ahead, repeat it after me. Focusing on your weaknesses is some Yes, weak ass advice. And we're releasing that burden right here, right now. It is time to move on. So let's focus on your strengths. The research shows that when you focus on your strengths, when you focus on things that you do well, you are more confident, you are self-aware, you are productive, but not just productive for productivity's sake. You are productive with ease. And Black women, come on, we need more ease in our life. You're more fulfilled, it increases your energy, you're way more creative, and you find more satisfaction and alignment and purpose in your work. You're less stressed and you have more joy. Let's think about this. God, Goddess, the divine, the universe, however you look at it, you were giving your strengths for a reason. And now it's time to focus on them and use them. That is why I serve as a transformational coach for Black leaders, for Black women, and other leaders of color to thrive in leadership and life. One of the ways that I do this is to help you identify and then stop following weak-ass advice, to step into your power. And one of the methods that I use is what I call the know, flow, grow method. That's right, know, flow, and grow, which is all about your strengths. So let's start with know first. First, you have got to know your strengths. But the issue is that your strengths tend to be so embedded in you that you don't even know what they are. It's like second nature. And also you've forgotten about them because you are so focused elsewhere. You're focused on what isn't perfect, what isn't working. Again, sometimes your weaknesses, but again, those are no longer your burden. So let those go. So let's think about, how do you get to know your strengths? First, let's give yourself some time. I want you to take some time and actually reflect and think about what you love doing, what comes easy to you, and jot that down. How are you showing up in those moments? Jot it down. Second, those same well-meaning friends, colleagues, potentially family members, you're going to go ahead and ask them. But this time, you're going to ask them what they believe your superpower is. What's the thing that you do better than anyone else, or something that just comes naturally to you? When do you shine? Ask them for that. And then go ahead again and jot down and take in what they have to say. The other way is step 3, or option 3, is to actually take an assessment. And so you've likely heard of Clifton Strengths, but there are a few other free assessments out there. Remember, I told you to grab a notebook and a pen, so go ahead and jot this down. One test that you can take, free and out there, it's called the High 5 test. Another one is called the Strengths Profile. And so for the free version, you would get your top 3 strengths. And then when you click the link and you follow the No Flow guide, I will have another resource that's linked that is scientifically backed. It gives you all sorts of goodies. So go ahead and click that link and you can get that assessment as well. But once you get the assessments and once you get the feedback from family members, I want you to sit with it and look at the list and identify and list your top 5. And then think of key phrases, or if you've taken the assessment, go ahead and highlight key phrases that really, really resonate with you. And that's going to be your strength and how you actually show up using that strength. The whole idea here is that you're going to know your strengths, but then you're also going to own them. They are yours, and no one else can take these strengths away from you. So now that you know your strength, the next thing to do is to be in the flow. So know and flow. Think back to when you were a kid. You naturally did things that you were pretty good at. And when you were a kid and you were doing things that you loved to do and you were naturally good at, you lost track of time. Now, kids really don't have a sense of time at any moment, but you definitely lost track of time when you were doing things that you love. And so we're going to get back to that. Just because you're an adult now does not mean that you can't step back into that flow, step back into those moments where you lose track of time. So I want you to think about that. When have you been in the flow? What roles or responsibilities in your personal life or in your professional life allowed you to shine? How are you showing up in that moment? What were you doing? Who were you doing it with? Who was around you? And as you reflect here, I want you to bring as much clarity as possible. The reason why is because this then becomes your zone and your community of genius, because what you do and who you do it with are important. We want to get you back into the flow. The final thing, so you know, flow, and now we've got to grow. So we want to grow the amount of time that you are actually in the flow. And so determine ways that you can actually boost your strengths and live in your zone of genius. One way that I suggest for you is to start each day in your strength. So if your strength is, if you're a learner, if it's intellection, then spend 20 minutes, heck, spend 5 minutes actually embracing that strength. Go ahead and read an article or sign up for an online course. And, it's self-paced. So, start taking some of the classes, in the morning and doing some of the work, for 5 or 20 minutes. Get in your zone of genius at the beginning of your day. Another way to grow your strengths again is by those top 5 that I said you were going to write down. Go ahead, put them on a sticky note, put them on your computer, put it in your workstation, put it on the screen of on your phone so that you are reminded what your zone of genius is. And the thing is that when you find yourself thinking about your weaknesses, I want you to move back to thinking about your strengths. Because when you operate in your strengths, you're actually moving the needle, you're having greater success, you're having more joy, and you're more productive, but again, with ease. So let's go back and check on our sisters to see what happened after they focused on their strengths, got hyped up, and remembered their it factor. So Sis, who was afraid to ask for a raise, she ended up asking for a 25% raise. She got 20, not 25%, but she got 20, which is way more than she was going to get by keeping her mouth shut. Sis, who was defeated before even presenting to the VPs, she remembered her strengths, she led with them, she even visualized a different scenario where she was rocking it, and she since nailed every presentation since. In fact, she's been asked to lead another group within the company because the leadership noticed her shine. The Sis who had a notebook full of amazing business ideas, she actually launched her website, and her first product is going to hit the market in Q1 of 2023. Sis, who considered ditching her consulting practice, instead magnified her strengths. And by March of this year, so earlier this year in March, she had a client and a revenue pipeline confirmed that was going to take her through June of 2023. So see, Sis, stop following weak-ass advice by focusing so much of your time and your energy on your weaknesses. That is no longer your burden. I want you to come back to you. Come back to your light. Come back to your it factor. Know, flow, and grow your strengths because you deserve a life of joy and you deserve a life of ease. And living out your strengths, living within your zone of genius is going to do that. So let's keep this momentum going. Again, click that link, download the No Flow Grow chart so that you can start reflecting on what makes you tick on your strengths, and let's get it going. Also, the assessments that I mentioned are going to be linked in that document. Again, follow me on IG and share what are the top 3 strengths that you have. And then If this really spoke to you and you're ready to release the burden of weaknesses, if you need a hype woman or an accountability partner in your corner, then reach out to me and we can establish a coaching relationship with you or with your team. And since I'm an executive coach, I'm gonna encourage you to have your job pay for it. Now we got to go out of here in style. And so my girl Lizzo, she would say that your strengths are your light, your it factor, that it's really your juice. So let's get after it then. And if the haters are going to hate, because they might, then you can just blame it on your juice.
Mirror, mirror on the wall, don't say it cause I know I'm cute. Oh, baby. Louis down to my drawers, LV all on my shoes. Oh, I be dripping so much sauce, got a bit looking like Grey Goose. Oh, lit up like a crystal ball, that's cool, baby, so is you, that's how I roll. If I'm shining, everybody gonna shine. Yeah, I'm gold. I was born like this, don't even gotta try. Now you know. I like shot and make it better over time. Now you know. Just say I'm not the baddest bitch you like. It ain't my fault that I'm out here getting loose. Gotta blame it on the goose. Gotta blame it on my juice.
Hey, y'all clap it up, give the heart. How are you today, Shannen?
I'm great, Casey. I am great. All the love and the energy in the chat. It just is like, this is the best way. I wish I could start my day like this every day. Yesterday was awesome. Yes. So
thank you so much for pouring into us. I can see the educators rooting hard. They like, she home team. She one of us. So I'm going to get right to the question, Shannen, so that folks have time to hear from you, because we have 3 minutes until the top of the next one. So I'm going to put Winnie's question on stage first. She says, if I spend a lifetime masking from my family and friends, do you think they'll still accurately identify my strengths?
Woo, that is deep. Yes, because I do think that within your circle, there is at least one person who you authentically know or who authentically knows you. Go to that person. Anyone who you've had to wear a mask as protection, because the masks are there to protect us, don't necessarily reach out to those folks, but reach out to the one you can be authentic with.
Love it. Okay, keeping it rolling. This one is from Chrissy. She asks, how do you navigate shifts in relationships when one moves from the space of following Weakass advice to walking in their strengths?
Like I said, the hater's gonna hate. And when you step into the light, like no matter what, relationships will shift. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable and let those relationships that need to go, let them go. Like they are not serving you. And so let them go. If they can't be there when you're in your light, then they can't be there.
I have chills. You said when you walk into your life, relationships are gonna shift.
Yes.
Do it anyway. Oh, that's good. Okay, last question. Thank you. Ashay says, I needed that. This is from Tiffany Brown. And she says, my weakness is definitely overcompensating. How do you deal with setting boundaries?
Yeah, and I feel like as weak women, no, we are not weak. We are strong. As Black women, we definitely tend to overcompensate. What was the second part of that question, Casey?
Let me put it back on. Oh, I can't. Okay. How do you deal with setting boundaries?
Yeah. Knowing what your boundaries are, being clear of this is a boundary for me and I'm not going to, allow others to step into them. So you need to get clear yourself as to what your boundaries are and then uphold them. Let folks know.
Ashay, let me tell you something, sis. And that was an amazing rapid fire. I'm very impressed that you did all 3 just now. No more questions in the Q&A. I needed everything you gave and that cherry on top with what you just said. I lost some of my longest relationships this year, and it started last year, but I needed to hear that because I'm actually better than I've ever been. So thank you for pouring into me.
You are shining. You are shining. It's okay.
I love you.
I love you too, Casey. Thank you so much. Thank you, y'all, for joining, and enjoy the rest of the summit.
Ashay. Thank you, Mama. All right, y'all. We are now going into a workshop. Get your pens and your papers ready because workshops are always methodical, step-by-step approaches to things. This is coming from Anika Leonard, and it is called Are We Comfortable? I'll see y'all on the other side. Peace.